Hi, it's Anna from the Heartbeat Hive, and I am here today to talk to you about a couple of things. One of them is about how to multiply your time by asking just a few simple questions. Another is, I'm going to call it app hoarding. Okay? Got some hoarders out there, digital apps. I'm going to address you. I'm coming for you. And also the idea of clarity and refinement in your workflow. All right. So clarity is a given. That's what I think. I think clarity comes first. Now, clarity can come through interaction. It can come through experience, direct application. Clarity arrives in different ways. But if you can seek it in everything that you do, I feel like your life is going to go in a better direction. All right, so that's just my personal opinion. So I'll give you an example. Would you like an example? So let's say one of your friends calls you up and they're like, I'm sad. And the first thought that you have is like, what are you sad about? You want to know, like you need clarity. Can I help this person? Is it a lost cause? Are they depressed? Are they just like bummed, disappointed? Is this fixable? So the clearer that person can get with you, the more able you can empathize, sympathize, help, or listen, So they say, you know what, I'm really disappointed in so-and-so because they said they were going to do something and then they backed out at the last minute. So that's a very specific, clear idea of why the person is sad. Okay, so that's just one example. Clarity is really important. Now, being open to refinement is, I just think, one of the best skills, one of the best characteristics of people, being flexible, right? Knowing that no system is perfect, no process is perfect, no tool, no app. Nothing is perfect, and we certainly aren't. So either the variables that are external are going to go through the process and those variables will kind of like prove that the process works, but maybe you have to tweak it. Or you can just deal with the steps as they come and realize, oh, I need to adjust in this process. Maybe the process sucks, right? Maybe the system is broken. So you have to be open to clarity and refinement. All right, so let's go on to these questions. The questions right over here are pretty simple. And this is my program that I use for my notes called Workflowy. I'll leave a link in the description. All right, so the first question is, can this task be eliminated? Okay, so it's like a really simple question, but there's all kinds of crap piled on it in our daily lives, whether it be FOMO or feeling the pressure, like, but my wife or my boyfriend, my wife, my people, my roommate, or my boss or whatever wants me to do it right now. Or you think they do, when actually they have in an email, it's like, if you could just have it done by this date. But you're putting that on yourself. Or it is actually due on this date, and it's like tomorrow. So being clear about those expectations for yourself and from others is really important. But elimination is great. I think if you can become a digital essentialist and an essentialist in your processes, you can get away with very little applications, and you can just feel a lighter cognitive load rather than having like 10 apps to do 3 things. Maybe maximizing 3 apps, which do 5 things, but they do them really well. So this is where the hoarding comes in, right? All right, so all the people out there buying lifetime deals left and right, buying a tool, an application for a very specific purpose is really awesome, right? Like, hey, it's awesome that these tools exist. But the first question is, do I really need it? Do I really need it? Have I maximized what I already have? Have I maximized what I already invested in? Am I actually following through on the thing? And that's where, if you can ask that question before this one, then you won't have to eliminate as much. All right. So in your looking at these processes, let's say you go through your workflow and you map it all out. You know, you're doing the thing and you're like, okay, first I do this, and then I go and I do this, and then I do this or this, and then I do this if this happens, you know, it's a different thing, right? So you map it all out, and then maybe in that process, you find like, there's a little gap here. Things sort of go wrong right here. What's going on there? Like, why is there a break here? Like, I lose customers here, or I lose my music students that I'm teaching around this time. And, you know, it's like in this area, they don't pay their invoice or something. And then I'm like still teaching and chasing the invoice, right? So mapping out your processes is really, really great for elimination, to help you say, you know what, I'm using 4 softwares. Let's say you numbered them. You're like, okay, that's one, and this one does something, and then this one does something, and then this one does something. Asking the question, could one of these do another function and still make the whole thing work? And maybe I sacrifice, you know, the way another one works or looks aesthetically, right? So it's making those decisions, but saying to yourself, well, I only have to log in to this many programs versus too much, right? And also, can I take this whole process and teach it to someone? The less moving parts here, probably the better to be able to step away from a process or teach it to other people and replicate it, right? All right, so that comes to the next question. Can the task be automated? Now, in art and music and things like that, that's sort of going to translate differently. All right, so what I like to talk about here is about friction. So let's say that you always forget to do your scales practice through the week, even though you think about it. Anyways, so you always forget. The way to help you automate that would be to schedule it. Now, where the discipline comes in is that when the calendar notification pops up, that you look at it and you've scheduled it at a time of day that is good for you, instead of saying, yeah, okay, and then you dismiss and you do not do the action. That's where clarity comes in. Well, why did I want to do the action in the first place? Oh, scales make me a better musician. It must be a priority because my ultimate goal is to be a better musician. That clarity is really going to help you. And you can map out your goals like this. Like, how do I get from point A to point H? So automation can work in a different sense of eliminating friction. So that automated calendar repeated event, you can move to different times in the same day. Let's say it pops up and you actually can't, execute it at that moment. You could move it by looking at your day and saying, you know what, I'm going to make time for that before the end of the day and I'll move it here. And then commit to doing it. All right. So with automation, it kind of goes hand in hand to me with friction. If there's too much friction, it's probably not going to get automated. So that would be an example of having too many applications to where when you tried to connect them together, it didn't work. Like this API doesn't talk to this API. Zapier didn't integrate, okay, for all you entrepreneurs out there. It just didn't work. So you have to go back, map it out, and refine the process and see, what can be eliminated. Okay, so let's move on to delegation. This is one of my favorite questions to ask. Can it be delegated? All right, for all the perfectionists out there, you gotta let go, man. You gotta let go. The tighter you hold on to perfectionism, the longer your to-do list is gonna be, right? and I understand quality. So you're not going to delegate things that are super important to you, money makers, maybe the core aspects of your business, but maybe there's smaller steps that you can delegate. Maybe there's smaller actions you can delegate. Now, when it comes to making art or music, you're probably not going to be able to delegate anything. But if you were, say, to you need to look for strings, or you need to look for a supply in order to make your art, and you could ask for some help. Hey, can you research this, or use the tools that you have access to kind of schedule that time and get the research done so that you can then follow through on the art making because you have the right supplies and tools. So automation is something that can really help, but only if you've been clear and you've decided what your path is. Delegation is something that, if you can find the right people, is super helpful. Now, people who work alone, which a lot of entrepreneurs do, and a lot of musicians and artists and creative people do as well. So delegation may not be in your equation, but the clarity and the refinement and the elimination, go for it. All right, so number 4, does this task need to be done now? All right, I like this question because when you get overwhelmed and you're looking at a giant list, I hope that's not you, but it probably is. Knowing how to filter that list is super important. And some would say that's prioritization. But if you don't have clarity on the tasks that really bring you forward, everything will seem important. Competing priorities. Have you ever heard that phrase? I hear it all the time. And I also hear the phrase, I don't have enough time. Well, if you get good at prioritization, if you get good at scheduling, like does it need to be done now or can I do it later? If you get good at eliminating things that you don't actually need to do, it's just like your perfectionist tendencies or perceived that you had to do it, and then figuring out if there's anything that you can automate is really helpful. So when you ask this question, does it need to be done now? There needs to be a mechanism. There needs to be a collection area or a decision that you make based on the answer. So if the answer is yes, then you have to commit to doing it. If the answer is no and you don't want to, if the task brings you forward, you've got to be willing to schedule it and follow through on it so your to-do list doesn't get a mile long or the information doesn't get lost in too many places and you're like, I thought I wrote that down somewhere. Now I can't find it. It falls through the cracks, so to speak. So gaining clarity on where you collect your information is also super important, which brings me back to the app hoarders. I'm going to say this plain as day. Stop hoarding applications. Decide, commit, use it, refine your process, refine how you use tool. If after a period you're using the tool longer than you're doing the thing that makes you happy, that brings you forward, that makes you the money, then it's time to switch tools or go back to what works for you. And some of you might say, well, I don't know what works. That's totally fine. But you got to commit and you got to be consistent to find out what works. All right. So we're talking about reducing friction and systematic friction. So looking at your processes and your systems and saying, can I eliminate anything? Can it be automated? Can any part of this be delegated? And when you get to the task or you get to the project, does it need to be done now? All right, so one of the ways to help you with all these questions and with your productivity is to remove distractions. Now, I want to talk about distractions for just a moment. There's a crew out there, there's a camp of people out there that are like, everything's distracting, my phone, it's Instagram, TikTok got me. All right. Are you the tool or is the tool the tool? You have to decide and be clear about what your actions are for the day, what you want to accomplish. In order to have an action or in order to have a distraction, you have to know what an action is. And you have to know, I want to take that action. And you have to know why. You have to be very clear. So, hey, quit blaming your time management and your lack of time on distractions when you have the power to turn the phone off. You have the power to stop notifications. You have the power to delete apps that you're not using. You have the power to log out and do the thing, get done with the thing, and then log back in and have a grand old time wherever you are going. Now, people who work inside of apps, like myself, I'm on Instagram, and people who work in social media, that's their job, right? So it's easy to blame the app, to say, oh, I got distracted and then I went and I commented and do. No. Remember this process. If you're in the middle of doing your work and you notice that you hit about 90 minutes of work and you start making mistakes or you start getting distracted, that's probably because you've been in flow and you need to come back out because your chemicals are going in flow and you feel really good, and the tendency is to keep going and really work past that optimal time and not give yourself enough rest. So if you can, get out of there and take a break for 20 minutes after every 90 minutes of work. Now, some people use the Pomodoro technique. That's totally fine. You have to decide what's best for you, and that includes what apps you use and social media channels. If a social media channel you found hasn't been healthy for you or productive or added to your life, even though there's a lot of people on there, or even if you have lots of followers, if it's not working for you, reassess, redefine, gain clarity. Why is that? All right, so remember, if you are going to claim a distraction, you have to be clear about what your actual desired actions are. Then you can say something is a distraction. But it's only a distraction if you say it is and you're giving your power away to it. Okay? So I believe in you. Trust me, I know that the world is full of a lot of noise, but it's our job to stay centered and to stay focused on what we want, if that's where we want to go. There's a time to rest, there's a time to play, there's a time to recover. And that's really what all the flow cycle is about and flow science is about. It's about productivity, but it's also about meaning and quality of life and enjoying your work. And for me, if you can ask these questions, then you can pull out and experience more joy because the noise has been eliminated. And noise could include hoarding apps. So I challenge you to go through your phone. Let's just do the phone for now, not the desktop. Go through your phone, look at all your little folders and apps, and see if there's an app that you haven't used in a long time. Just ask the question, will my life go on without it? Yes. Can I re-download it? That's another question. Do I really need it? No, probably not. But there are some that are super helpful. And I'm talking about social stuff or games and things like that. So I hope this has been helpful and not too long. But go ahead and ask these questions. I guess I'll copy and paste these and put them in the description so that you can copy and paste them to your own note-taking app. And I challenge you to go through your phone and eliminate some things that you're not really using. And just see how it feels. Chances are you probably won't miss them. But if you do, you can always download them again. All right, for now, that's it. Stay productive, and I will see you next time.